Try to maintain.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the April 2022 session of Galactic Terrors. I am Jim Chambers, and with me tonight is co-host Carol Gyzander.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight.
How are you doing, Carol?
Doing pretty well. It was very warm today, and then it got rainy. So.
Yes, very rainy, very fast. But that's okay. Rain or shine, we have a great lineup tonight of readers. Joining us are Trevor Firetog, Kathleen Scheiner, and Nicholas Kaufmann. And they're going to share some of their work with you tonight and take some questions and hopefully give some answers. I'd love to see that. You know, they'll just take the questions. Yes, we'll take questions, but we're not giving any answers.
Yes, I'm going to take the questions, put them in my pocket. Yeah, it's kind of fun. This is it's a New York crowd we have tonight. All three readers are New Yorkers. So
yes, cool. The Big Apple represents, and we are glad to have them on our Galactic Terrors reading series as we continue scouring the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, dark humor, and all sorts of literary oddities from the most imaginative authors writing in any genre today.
You know, whenever you say literary oddities, I'm pretty sure you're talking about me. So that's cool. I'm just happy to be represented. So
I feel like we can all relate to that term, literary oddities. Mm-hmm. Speaking of oddities, though, I did see in our notes for the session tonight that you are hooking us up with the countdown till Halloween.
Yes, I thought it was time to start. I mean, we're a third of the way through the year. Did you know it's 200 days until Halloween?
That's it. Nice.
Yay.
And people are already looking forward to it.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, much closer than that, coming up in just about a month exactly, is StokerCon 2022 in Denver. Mm-hmm. And I can give a little bit of an update there. Brian Matthews and I have finished programming the in-person StokerCon event, and we are hoping within the next couple of weeks to release the programming for the virtual portion of the convention. So lots of exciting stuff happening there. We're going to have a ton of great readings. Thanks certainly to Carol, who has helped out immensely in organizing our author reading program for the event.
Thank you. It's been very much fun to learn about so many great readers. But, you know, the amazing thing is we had so many people who wanted to do slots that we couldn't even give slots to, you know, half of the folks. So it's nice to see that StokerCon is being well supported this year.
Yeah, very much. I think Brian told me just the other day that we have record attendance. It's looking to be the largest StokerCon ever. So I think people are very eager to get back into the in-person experience and see each other.
Well, you know, the thing I like also is that you're also doing a virtual component to it. So those who can't or don't want to travel can still watch it virtually. Like last year's was all virtual. So I think that's a terrific thing to offer for those folks who are far away or can't get away for the whole time or whatever. I think that's a terrific offering.
Yeah, we've gotten great feedback on that from international members and international authors who are really happy to have a chance to take part and connect and just, you know, share the StokerCon experience and hook up with other authors. So we're looking forward to it.
Cool. So that's pretty neat. Well, there's some other stuff going on. The month of April is National Poetry Month. So many of us write prose or screenplays or whatever, but we have quite a few poets among our general cohort of folks. And so it's really cool to see what people have been putting out and the books that are coming out this month. Some folks, you know, plan some good releases for poetry books to come out during Poetry Month. That, you know, makes sense to me.
It's good
But
timing.
yeah. HWA has a call for submissions as well for their Poetry Showcase Volume 9. And that's going on this month. Angela Eureka Smith, who's been one of our readers before, will be the editor for the volume. And other judges include Lee Murray and Maxwell Gold. So that's pretty cool.
That's a great lineup.
Yeah.
All great writers. And Angela is also the editor and publisher of Space and Time magazine, which is fantastic. And I can't remember the last time I wrote poetry. I wrote a lot of it years and years ago, and then I sort of stopped, and I tried to get back into it a few years ago, and I didn't feel it went too well. So
I was going to ask you if you ever wrote any. Yeah, I've written a few, and I've done a few classes with Linda Addison. I actually read my very first poem I wrote in front of Linda Addison. It's like,
I'm sure she loved it.
She is a gem. She would not say that she didn't. So
exactly. Yeah. And even though I don't write much poetry, I have taken her poetry class. I've found it just generally insightful and helpful. And Linda has such a great perspective on writing.
And reading your work as well. Yeah. That's cool. So for those folks who are watching us on YouTube, one thing that would be really helpful is if you're willing to do so, please like our video and subscribe to our channel so it's easy to find us again, because all of our past recordings are available there on the YouTube channel, and they can be found somewhere in Facebook land. I'm not exactly sure where on our HWA New York Facebook page, but you're welcome to go back and look at those. We find that we have many, many more people watching the replays than we do live, which is kind of cool. I think, it's easier to pick it at your own, particular convenient time, perhaps. So I'm glad that's available for folks. So.
Yeah, definitely check out the archives. And I'm very glad Carol remembered to mention that we would really like you to like the video and subscribe to the Galactic Terrors YouTube channel. It's imperative now more than ever that we support these things, because for every like and subscribe, Elon Musk gets another share of Twitter. And here he's trying to take over Twitter. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we have to rally to support. So like and subscribe and bear
I am not going to say a word. I am not going to say a word. No. Oh well.
That's it. Cool. That's the thing these days. There's no more free trips to Disney courtesy of Bill Gates. It's all about helping Elon Musk take over Twitter.
Cool. Oh well. So. There's one more cool thing that's happening now. As we're coming up on the Stoker Award presentation next month at StokerCon, now it's time already that the recommended works list for the next year of Stoker Awards is open. So people can find that on horror.org. Members can go and recommend works that they've read already that came out in last year that they'd like to recommend in this year, in 2022.
And this year, this is for this year's work published this year, and it's looking to be a great year for horror reading. And I know our 3 readers tonight all have great stuff out or coming out. So certainly give their work a read. And perhaps on that note, we should go ahead and bring the readers in. What do you think?
It sounds like a plan to me. Let's get started.
All right.
So cool. So Jim, I'm excited. You get to introduce Trevor for us.
Do I?
You do.
I thought I was introducing Kathleen. Okay, I'm happy to introduce Trevor.
Okay.
Yeah. Trevor Firetog. Wait. Did I jump the gun? Or are you introducing Trevor?
No, I am introducing Trevor. Okay, this is what happens when Carol puts the script together very early in the morning. I would like to introduce Trevor Firetog. He writes out of Long Island, New York. He's the author of the horror thriller novella Usual Monsters. His short fiction has appeared in various magazines and anthologies, most recently in Even in the Grave. Aside from writing, Trevor collects and restores vintage typewriters. When he's not reading on the beach or scavenging used bookstores, he's usually holed up in his office working on his next project. Connect with him on Twitter and Instagram at Trevor Firetog. Trevor?
My name is Trevor Firetog, and I will be reading a portion of my short story, What's Your Secret?, which will be published in the upcoming anthology, Even in the Grave. The host has a classic style. Button suit, long black tie, slicked back hair. And even though the show is in black and white, you could still somehow tell that his suit is blue. He's seen with a lit cigarette between his fingers, but rarely ever takes a drag. The show always starts the same. The host, Kerry Holland, stands in front of the camera. It's framed in a tight close-up on his face and nothing but darkness behind him. Hello, my name is Kerry Holland, and I have a secret to tell you. Behind these curtains, we are hiding a special guest. However, this guest has a secret of their own. Over the course of this evening, we'll find out exactly what they're hiding. I just told you my secret. What's yours? The audience claps as he steps back. The camera pulls out as lights illuminate the set, revealing the game show's name in big, light-up letters over the host's desk. To his right, a panel of 3 celebrity judges sit behind a long table. The show's format is simple, possibly overly so. Sitting together on one side of a plain set, each of the panelists takes a 30-second turn questioning and then guessing the contestant's secret. Many other game shows of the same style, they use up to 4 contestants throughout the night. However, in this episode of What's Your Secret, there is only 1 contestant. It's always the same person. Every single night. Same guest, same panelists, same questions. However, if you watch closely, you can see the slight differences. Kerry Holland usually holds a cigarette with his right hand, but one time he perched it between the fingers of his left. Once, during his opening speech, he gave a slight pause as if fumbling over his own words. A few nights ago, one of the celebrity panelists, Jerry Jones, he sneezed while Holland introduced them. After Kerry Holland's introductions, they bring out the guest from behind a red velvet curtain. Like Kerry's suit, the color seems obvious, even in this black and white broadcast. She takes her place on a wooden stool next to the host's desk. Her blonde hair sits shoulder length, and she squints at the stage lights. There's an S-shaped scar on her chin. She's young, maybe in her 20s. The 1950s style of clothing makes her look much older. Kerry Holland doesn't introduce her, never says her name. Instead, Kerry explains the rules. She has to respond yes or no, and nothing in between. Other programs like this, they display the person's secret or occupation on the screen for the audience right before the questions start, but this show doesn't do that. The audience knows nothing more than the panelists. Kerry Holland starts by offering a hint. This young lady's secret concerns some place where she spent some time. Mr. Jones, we'll start with you. And Jerry Jones always goes first. Someplace where she spent some time. And we pause for audience laughter. Is it a resort of some kind? No. Well, it's not prison, is it? More audience laughter. The girl laughs as well. No. When she says no, she shakes her head, blonde hair swaying. An institution of some kind. More laughter. It sounds canned, like they're playing the same track over and over and over. No. That's a relief. Now, is this the kind of place you went to of your own accord? Yes. Jones pauses here to rub his forehead. Once he dabbed the sweat away with a handkerchief, but tonight he simply rubs a palm over his forehead. Was this for research or some kind of experiment? No. Were you at this buzzer sounds? Go ahead and finish your question, Mr. Jones, Kerry Holland says. Were you at this place by yourself? No. This show reminds me of the ones I used to watch with my mother. We'd sit on the couch for hours watching reruns whenever I was homesick from school, and I wish those days never had to end. The shows, however, were nothing like this. The next panelist is Rita Lewis, and she doesn't make much progress during her allotted time. Instead, she prefers to make jabs at her colleagues and get the audience laughing. It goes on like this for a while, and every now and again, Holland takes a commercial break, the advertisements for products that no longer exist. Get richer looking, better tasting, more appetizing results in everything you bake or fry. Get Golden Fluffo. And right before the broadcast fades back into static, the third panelist, Walter Boyle, quizzes her. He's the oldest of the three, and he wears thick, plastic framed glasses. His accent is British, and he has this odd habit of giving a short, throaty chuckle after every one of his questions. Did you have fun at this place? No. Is this the kind of place where I should go? No. Was it a building of some kind? No. So is this place found in nature? Yes. And the picture flickers, static, dances across the screen. Every night, they air one more question than the previous night. I've never seen any of these people before. Carrie Holland, Jerry Jones, Rita Lewis, Walter Boyle, they don't exist. And you can't find anything about them online. The girl, she doesn't look familiar at all. I've never seen this girl before. I know nothing about her, so I have to make assumptions based on what little I do know. It's impossible to tell how she dresses or wears her hair outside of the show because one can assume that she received this wardrobe right before the broadcast. If she has an accent, I can't tell from the one-word answers she's giving. The S-shaped scar on her chin defines an otherwise plain-faced girl. It's the kind of scar a lover might trace their finger along. If I'm not watching TV, the television turns on by itself. If I leave it unplugged, I still hear the voices coming very faintly through the speakers. If I yank the plug out while the broadcast is playing, the TV powers down, but an image of the game show stays on the screen for a while, lingering like a ghost. Sometimes if I'm not home, the game show starts playing on my phone. And if I log into YouTube, every single video is of this game show. Why should I know the girl? She's from the 50s. They haven't even mentioned her name. There's no way I would know who she is. If she's even still alive today, she must be older than my grandma. The scar could be from a bike riding incident when she was just a little girl. She and her friends were riding along the road when they hit a patch of sand. She lost control of the bike and landed on the glittering remains of a broken bottle. And she probably screamed and cried and bled for hours while her friends looked on helplessly, all afraid to tell an adult because she wasn't supposed to have friends over. I've seen this show every night for the past 11 years, every single night. If I try to spend the night out camping or in a hotel, I still hear it playing on the TV in the next room or echoing somewhere deep in the forest. No one else sees the show. I've made other people sit and watch with me, but they're only staring at static. Everyone thinks I've gone insane. I keep a notepad of all the differences, anything that might help me figure out why they haunt me. I got married 2 years ago, and I haven't told my wife about this. I'm afraid to. I set up a TV in the shed. I call it my man cave, and she never questions why I go in there every night. It's pointless to avoid the show. It always finds me, so best thing to do is embrace it. The show only runs for a little over 20 minutes so far. There's still another 10 minutes left. And the way it's going, I'll probably finish the show in another 5 years. I need to embrace it. The game show, What's Your Secret? Doesn't exist. But I admit, I know the girl on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Fantastic reading. All right. And such a weird story. Well, I have to, so full disclosure, that story was published in Even in the Grave, which Carol and I co-edited. So I'm familiar with the story, and Teal is, I'm just going to jump to a quick comment from Teal, because this is funny. Is that show on Paramount Plus?
No, I signed an exclusive deal with Hulu, though, so you could find it there.
There you go. But I don't think that in the process of working with you on the story and preparing it for publication, I don't think I ever asked, and I would like to ask now. And then please, in the audience, feel free to put some questions in for Trevor. Let us know what you want to hear about. Where did you get the inspiration for that approach to this particular story? The idea of going to this outdated 50s game show as your motif?
Well, part of what I said in the story was true, that I always used to watch these 50s game shows with my parents, and I still do, although now whenever I see them, the game shows have switched over to Family Feud, which is significantly less creepier than the 50s game shows. But yeah, you see those game shows and you see all these people that have long passed, and you see these advertisements for products that don't exist anymore, and it can kind of be creepy. So I had this idea for a story a couple of years ago, and it wasn't coming together. I really wanted to use the game show idea, the creepiness, and it just wasn't working. And then when I was asked to write something for this anthology, I looked at it from a different perspective. I looked at it as a haunting more, and then everything just fit so beautifully, and it came out like exactly how I wanted it to.
Cool. So it just sort of clicked, and
Yeah.
that was, so the idea for doing something with game shows, or the game show as a concept, was there until you found the story that it meshed with.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I knew I always wanted to do something with it, but it never clicked.
Do you find that a lot of your stories come together that way, where you have sort of different elements that you're interested in, and it takes time before they kind of line up and take shape? Or do other stories come to you kind of more fully formed?
No, I mean, sometimes, those stories, there's something that I want to write about, and I try, but I don't like what I'm working on, and maybe something else is calling to me. So I always hear that siren's call of a new idea, but then you see something that reminds you and say, oh, I was working on this story, or, oh, hey, I want to revisit this world. Let's go back to it. And then suddenly it works better. I think you really need some time away sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. Sometimes putting something aside, coming back to it with fresh eyes can be really helpful, or just letting it kind of sit in the back of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. We do have a question from Teal, and this kind of dovetails with a question I was going to ask you. So we'll go ahead and take his question. Teal has heard you collect typewriters, and like this old game show, are you fascinated with the old culturally?
I am. There's something about the antiques and these, machines that you call them obsolete, but they're still fully functional and perfect, and you're kind of burying it before it's dead. And that is just something that has always fascinated me.
Interesting. Okay. And with your interest in typewriters, so did that start with your interest in writing? Were you, as a writer, did you sort of get drawn to the idea of a typewriter, because it's such a classic, iconic thing for writers? I mean, probably very few writers use actual typewriters these days. But I know, and I'm dating myself, but when I started writing, I did use a typewriter. So
Well, you always see typewriters on like covers or like websites. It's iconic. I wrote long before I collected typewriters, and I remember collecting when I first started taking an interest in it. I found one at an estate sale, and I had no clue what I was buying. I just knew it looked super pretty, so I needed to buy it. And then I don't know what happened, but they breed. I now have way too many.
Do you know how many you have now?
Definitely in the triple digits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And there's a whole community of typewriter collectors, right? And aficionados.
Collectors, restorers, absolutely. Yeah.
That's cool. We have a question coming in from Carol. You have such a great sense of timing as a reader / performer. Did that play into the way you wrote the story?
Absolutely. Something I do, and I'm sure a bunch of other writers do as well, is I make sure I read every single word out loud. And that really kind of helps you get a flow for the dialogue between the characters and the natural rhythm. So that's something that I kind of try to expand on.
Cool. And a quick follow-up to that from Chris. Does your performance style come from practice or a theater background? I know the answer to that.
Yeah, definitely theater background. We've talked about this before. Definitely theater. I grew up as a theater nerd, and I was on stage throughout all my life, classically trained, and that was really my first love. That was how I fell in love with the arts to begin with.
So would you say that's where you first kind of grasped onto the idea of a story or storytelling?
Definitely. And if not through the storytelling, at least the characters, because when you're assigned a character on stage, you kind of have to give it a background. Even though the audience who's viewing it will never know the background you've created, you still have to do the work. So that has definitely helped.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it was last month we had a bit of a discussion during the Q&A session with our readers. I think with Elmarie Wood in particular, about characters and stories rising from characters and how important that is, and exactly that idea that you as the author probably know a lot more about the character than will ever be in the story. So it's interesting that that's the direction you came from the early days.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, Trevor, thanks so much for sharing your work with us. We'll have you back on for our roundup, and we want to hear what you're up to next at the end of the show.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Our next reader tonight is Kathleen Scheiner. Kathleen is an editor and writer living in Brooklyn. She has written for Publishers Weekly, Scholastic, Chime for Change, L'Écran Fantastique, Toxic, and Penny Blood. Her novel, The Collectors, was published in 2013, and her short fiction has appeared in Memoirs of Meanness, A New York State of Fright, Under Twin Suns, and various Girls Write Now anthologies. She'll be reading from Rats of New York, a new middle grade book she's working on. And you can find Kathleen online at horrorfeminista.com. Welcome, Kathleen.
Valentine whistled, and that appeared to be the signal for them to move. Mallard got up on the ledge first and held a paw out to Maisie. He said, "Come, Mother." Maisie couldn't balance and carry the shell at the same time. She passed it over to Matilda, then took Mallard's paw and hoisted herself up on the ledge with his help. "Give the shell to me," said Vincent. "I have practiced carrying things while walking. I can balance it on my head." Matilda didn't like the greedy look on his face, and she shook her head. "No, thanks. I can do it." First, Matilda put the shell up on the ledge. Then she clambered up herself and balanced on her two hind legs while taking up the shell in her forepaws. "Got us a bunch of circus rats," she heard Vincent say, and his words echoed down the tunnel. "Circus rats, circus rats, circus rats, circus rats." The sound made Matilda shiver, but she straightened up her back and followed along behind her father and mother. Soon she heard Motorboat and Maximilian huffing and puffing in back of her. She felt bad for her brothers because she knew they were trying to show their bravery to Vincent. Suddenly, Matilda's father disappeared from the ledge. He button-hooked right into the wall, and then Maisie was gone as well. "Mother? Father? Matilda called out tentatively. She took a few more steps, and then rough paws were on her body. They grabbed the shell out of her arms and then tugged her through a chink of space in the dark bricks of the tunnel. Matilda took in a gulp of air and prepared to scream, but then she saw she was in a safe, dark space and looked up at her mother and father's faces. She grinned to see that they were all right. Valentine conferred with an older rat in the corner, and Matilda thought she recognized him as being the lead soldier of the Coney Island excursion. Virgil was his name, she remembered. 2 other soldier rats had pulled her in, and one turned the seashell over in his paws. He looked at it suspiciously. "What's this for?" he asked. "It's magic," yelped Matilda's mother, and made a grab for it. The soldier rat held the shell up above her head so she couldn't reach it. "When you enter our community, you surrender all possessions for the common good," he said. Maximilian and Motorboat were pulled in through the hole by the soldier rats, and Vincent entered on his own. "Please," whined Maisie, "I need it." Vincent's eyes lit up once he saw that the seashell was out of the family's possession, and he took it from the soldier rat. He tucked it under one arm like a parcel. Virgil saw Vincent's entrance and scurried over to clap him on the back. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. We thought you were goners and we'd never see you again." Vincent seemed hurt. "You wouldn't come back for us?" "No, much too dangerous. It was a fool's errand in the first place, but the Queen was adamant about a special escort for this colony. Relatives or something," Virgil grumbled. Matilda and her family were herded through a maze of pipes, a network much larger than anything they had in Coney Island. She didn't know how she would ever keep it straight. But as she ran along the pathways, urged on by the soldier rats wanting them to join the others, Matilda told herself, "One day this will be familiar to me. I'll know it like the back of my paw." The last pipe they entered emptied out into a large sewer tunnel. Matilda could hear the squeaking of hundreds of rats before she saw them. Matilda popped out of the pipe and landed on top of her mother with a ploomf. She scrambled off and looked in amazement at all the rats around her. It was more than hundreds, she thought. There must be thousands, maybe even 1,000,000. There were several different lines of rats. Motorboat and Maximilian were herded into one with only young male rats. Matilda deduced that it must be the line for the incoming recruits of the Queen's army. At the head, Matilda saw a large black rat with a twisted scar near his eye. She imagined him getting it during battle. He had each of the young male rats put their paw on the greenstone of a necklace. The other paw went over their heart. He asked them one after another, "Do you swear to loyally follow your Queen? Do you swear to do everything in your power to serve her and this community?" Some young males nodded their heads. The braver ones said, "I do." Then a medium-sized rat with thick black whiskers took the necklace and put it around the recruit's neck. Maximilian and Motorboat excitedly clasped paws and eyeballed the official ceremony. They looked forward to their own pledges, but they were most excited for the necklaces that would mark them as soldiers. "My sons," said Maisie with pride. This way," said Virgil, and he herded Matilda, Mallard, and Maisie to the tail end of another line of rats. It was far, far away from Maximilian and Motorboat. Matilda overheard other rats' conversations as she passed by. So many rats from all over New York. Matilda never knew so many existed, and she was getting lots of peculiar looks as she passed by. "What an ugly rat! Orange? How awful for its mother," she heard a gossipy female rat say in a loud voice as Matilda and her family ran by. Matilda had mostly forgotten about her different colored fur. The other rats in Coney Island were used to her appearance and didn't make many comments about it. When she was younger and Maisie groomed her, her mother always said, "Look at this lovely ginger fur. I could eat you up." This had made Matilda think her fur was rather pretty. It hurt her feelings to hear the others saying such negative things about her. At last, they were placed at the end of the line of rats. Matilda recognized the dowager rat Martha, who had been part of their original Coney Island group. She walked with a limp and turned around carefully as if it hurt her. "Well, well, well," she announced. "You caught up to us." Matilda nodded and watched as her father bragged about her. He told the other Coney Island rats about the seashell and their trip through the subway. It made Matilda feel a little bit better, but she still saw all the stairs she was drawing. She stared down at the black brick floor of the sewer tunnel. All the lines seemed to merge into one that slowly trudged forward. Matilda's eyes were hot and itchy, and she longed to just curl up and sleep. Up ahead, a young rat asked his mother, "How much longer?" Soldier rats were spaced along the line every 2 feet or so. Vincent watched over the Coney Island rats, and he still held her seashell in his arms. Maisie gazed at the shell and twisted her paws together. "It's just not fair. We risked our lives to bring that, and they should be celebrating us. Instead, there he stands with it, looking like a goblin." Matilda nodded her head and walked forward a few steps when the line moved. She was too tired to speak. The loud squeaking of all the rats gathered in the tunnel echoed off the walls. This started to make her feel dizzy and disoriented, like she was not quite there. As their line progressed, Matilda thought she was having a nightmare. She glimpsed 2 different colored rats ahead of them. One was an enormous white rat who sat on a pink velvet cushion. Her little pink feet, tail, and paws looked frail compared to the girth of her body. This big white rat had sparkling pink eyes, like the jeweled rings Matilda had seen given away as prizes at the Pitch Till You Win booth on the boardwalk. A tall, skinny, chocolate brown rat stood beside the white rat on the cushion. He was kitted out in a little suit coat and pants, like the Two Legs wore. As rats went by, they bowed down in front of the white rat on the pink cushion. She watched them sleepily and stifled a yawn. The chocolate brown rat caught sight of Matilda and her ginger fur, and he bent down to whisper into the Queen's ear. The Queen straightened up on her cushion. Her eyes sharpened and grew inquisitive as Matilda and her mother and father advanced in the line. "You there, the orange one. Come forward," she said. She pointed a pink paw at Matilda. Matilda was sick of being an oddity and burrowed into her mother's side, just wanting to hide from everybody. Maisie petted her daughter's head and back, trying to comfort her. Said the Queen. "Appears her brains are as muddled as her fur." Maisie rose up on her hind legs to make herself look bigger and more threatening. "How dare you say that about my daughter? She led us here when your soldiers got us lost and didn't know how to get back home on the subway." The other rats around them grew silent, the squeaking suddenly coming to a stop, appalled that Maisie had insulted the Queen. The chocolate brown rat cocked his head and studied Matilda intently. "You rode the subway? Quite daring, little one," said the Queen. "How did you avoid the Two Legs?" Vincent came forward with his shell, proffering it up to the Queen. "It was me, Your Majesty. I came upon this seashell dropped by a seagull. I knew it had been sent to me by something special. I scrambled in the sand to get it, and when I put my ear to it, the shell told me what to do. It has powerful magic." Vincent laid the shell at the Queen's feet and bowed down in front of her. "Magic, you say?" said the Queen. "Lies, all lies," said Maisie, and she rushed at the seashell and the Queen. Mallard tried to stop her, but Maisie broke away as Matilda yelled, "Mama!" 2 soldier rats rushed in from the dark shadows and kept Maisie away from the Queen and the seashell. The Queen seemed amused by this disturbance, her white whiskers twitching, and she slowly rose up on her haunches to take the seashell and put it to her ear. "Nothing. I hear nothing," she said. "Perhaps the shell needs me to interpret the magic," said Vincent. The Queen squinted down at him. "I am Victoria, Queen of the Rats. If there is magic, it will work through me." "Yes, Your Majesty," said Vincent. "Perhaps the shell is tired right now, after helping us out with its magic." "You're a liar and a thief," babbled Maisie. "You know perfectly well that Matilda got us here, you conniving little cockroach." "Woman, you must be mad," the chocolate brown rat next to the Queen said. "To act in such a way in front of the Queen and say such things about one of her most distinguished soldiers. I think you've quite lost your head." The Queen nodded. "You're right, Chester. I believe there must be something defective in her to cause her to act such a way. We can't have her mixing with the others. She might infect them. Guards, take her away." Maisie shrieked as the guards tugged on her arms to lead her away. Matilda raced toward her, yelling, "Mother!" But then she came up short, not able to run anymore. Vincent had grabbed onto her tail, so she was running in place. The queen looked down at Matilda. "Are you defective too? You with your marmalade fur?" Matilda looked at her father in the crowd, seeing the fear in his eyes, and she knew she couldn't abandon him. She shook her head no. The queen tossed the shell on the ground and said, "Get back in line with the others." With her heart in her throat, Matilda did as she was told. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Hi.
Hi, Carol.
How are you?
I'm good.
Delighted to
How
see
are you?
Good. Boy, what a power play that was. You know, fascinating to watch. Okay. Tell me, what are you saying about people with these rats?
What am I saying? Nothing. I'm talking about the rats.
There you are. Yeah. No, that was an amazing thing. You know, Vincent coming up with a shell and claiming all the power for it when the other gal was the one who got everyone there. You know, we've seen that in people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have to say, when you sent in the artwork, the illustration for this that we had on that little video before that with all the all the rats, I was like blown away. It was like, oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous, and there were so many rats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? Is Christine here? Is she the one that made the illustration?
Christy, come here. Yes, my talented sister is my illustrator for this book.
Oh. I just wanted to tell you, I thought the artwork was fabulous. I know we can't fit both of you on there, but it was very cool. So if anybody has any questions for Christy about the artwork as well, you can put them in the chat. Okay, so we do have a question that Teal put in.
Okay.
That we can start with. He says, "Okay, why rats? And how much research in Coney Island did you do?"
I did a lot of research. I went down there. I was like squatting on the subway and taking pictures of the grates underneath. And why rats? I don't know. I kind of admire them. They're industrious. They are hardy. I think it all started. I read this book by John Sullivan called Rats, and it ended up being source material for Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan when they did the Strain trilogy. But then what really clicked for me and like, why make this a kid's book is my best friend's daughter, Valerie. She was in grade school and she had this social study project, and they were like, all right, have your friends or whatever write in from where they live and tell you a little bit about the place. So I was living in Bushwick at the time, which is known for its rats. They're huge. So I wrote to her about rats and everything I had learned about rats, and you know how they came over and they were in the shipyards, and they're really big in Bushwick because we're right near the shipyards. And the kids loved it. She said, like, usually during social studies, like everybody's bored. It's like, oh, the show me state. And then her postcard was about these rats, and the kids just went wild. So I was like, oh, there's an idea there. So I'd been sitting on it for a while, but it's like, oh, Coney Island, like, why would they go into Manhattan? And then the pandemic happened, and you've seen like the rat explosion. They're just like desperate for food. So now I had a perfect reason. So I've been doing rats.
Okay. And there's a queen of the rats. I didn't know that. So
yes, Queen of the Rats.
Yeah. So this is not exactly a horror novel, or is it? Tell me what genre.
It's a light touch. It has mysteries at the Wax Museum, ghosts, magic show, that sort of a thing. It has horror elements, but it's definitely not my usual body horror because it is aimed for middle grade kids.
Yeah.
More like Goosebumps. Like some of my ideas that I presented in my writing group, they're just like, no, cannibals. No, kids aren't going to like that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, I know, speaking of kids and working with young folks and all, you're also very active with Girls Right Now, which is a wonderful writing organization. Can you tell us briefly about that and what you do with them?
I am a mentor with them. So they pair professional women writers, editors, and such with high school girls who don't have access to art programs. A lot of time, like their school's just like underfunded, so they don't have a lot of resources. And you work with them during high school And they will do that. Everybody's published in an anthology near the end. You meet with them once a week and you're working on writing. They end up performing a piece in front of an audience of hundreds. We used to have these at the Scholastic Auditorium. With and we have like great keynote speakers that come in. We had Roxane Gay, Emily Mandel, and now they've opened it up for the college.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Well, so now I'm working with a mentee who I had during her high school years, and she's at Hunter. But now we're working together while she's in college as well, and we're like working on their website right now.
Well, that sort of ties in with something else I was wondering, because I know you are an editor and you're also a mentor to the young women in this program. How does that affect your writing? Do you learn from them? Does that
definitely? Yeah. I don't know, just everything that's current, and then sometimes the way they talk to me, it's like, have you heard of TikTok? And it's like, yeah. I'm not that old. But then sometimes I don't, what is it? I am building something where we started, it was like a reading blog, and this is like our big project, me and my mentee right now. But she, what is that called? I don't know. I can't remember.
on the spot? It's okay.
Anyways, but it was like this huge thing with a channel, and she helped me build it, and it's amazing. But I would not have known how to do that, and she's just like so technologically adept.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I did 15 years as a scout leader, and definitely a key to young. I know what you mean. Yeah. Very cool. Well, I do have one quick question for Christy about the illustrations and such. How did you work with your sister on getting this done? Did you read the book, or did you talk to her about what was going on, or how did you work that part?
I read where the hell's your camera? I just read the excerpt that she just read, and went from that, and then asked her questions about some of the characters that weren't actually in the, like, not in the text of the story. And
cool.
Yeah, it was kind of funny over coffee. She's like, so is it a jewel? What's the strings? Is it twine? Is it what can you find in the subway? So a very interesting conversation.
What shape is this shell?
Yeah. Kathleen, did that make you think about what you were writing when she was asking these questions?
I knew in my head, like maybe I hadn't written in such a way, like the seashell is orange and all of that, but I knew what it looked like. So I was like, it's big enough for a rat to hold to the ear. It's not like one of those big, massive clamshells. Okay. We're talking about like the seashells that are available at Coney Island. So, yeah.
And we have one last question from Chris here for Sis. For Sis, were you angry with Kathleen? You have to draw so many rats? Well, I'm gonna just guess and say the answer is no. But yeah, you tell us.
What?
Were you angry with Kathleen when you discovered you would have to draw so many rats?
Oh my God, no. I don't even have to look up pictures of rats. I have a rat formula.
Rat formula, okay.
Your rats.
That's very cool. No, that was a good question, because not everybody might like that. Yeah. Well, all righty. Well, thank you so much to both of you for the reading in the chat. That was really cool. And I always think rats are cool. I don't mind seeing them from a distance, but that's okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you at the end when we bring it back.
All right.
Okay. What I'd like to do now is introduce our next reader, Nicholas Kaufmann. He's a Bram Stoker Award-nominated, Thriller Award-nominated, Shirley Jackson Award-nominated, and Dragon Award-nominated author of 2 short story collections and 7 novels, including the bestsellers 100 Fathoms Below with Stephen L. Kent and The Hungry Earth. His short fiction has appeared in Cemetery Dance, Black Static, Nightmare Magazine, Interzone, and others. In addition to his own original work, he's written for such properties as Zombies vs. Robots, The Rocketeer, and Warhammer. He and his wife live in Brooklyn, New York. You can visit Nick at his website, nicholaskaufmann.com, or on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Book Club. Nicholas.
Hey, folks, thanks so much for being here. And I want to give a thank you to Carol and James as well for having me. I'm going to read the short opening chapter from The Hungry Earth, which came out back in October and was an Amazon and Barnes & Noble bestseller, which I'm very, very grateful for and honored by. So yeah, I'm just going to read sort of the opening chapter. It's pretty short, but it gets to the point, I guess. Here we go. It was going on 11 o'clock at night when the flesh slipped off Cat Bishop's arm as easily as an elbow-length opera glove. Lying on her stomach on her bed and drawing in her favorite sketchbook, she'd been having trouble concentrating ever since she got back from the park. She blamed it on her heart still racing after her date with Tasha. The secrecy of it only made it more exciting. She'd waited until 9:30 when her parents went to bed before sneaking out of her converted attic bedroom. The summer night air was humid as she climbed down the rickety trellis on the rear of the house. She biked the quarter-mile to Drayton Park. Tasha was waiting on the park bench just outside the gate to the community garden. They'd chosen this spot because it struck them both as romantic, and because they knew no one else would be there so late. They weren't worried about being alone in the park at night. There wasn't much crime in the city of Sakima, New York. The online police blotter was generally empty except for the occasional report of shoplifting or angry residents dumping trash on their neighbors' lawns. No, Kat's only real concern was her parents finding out. They'd always been supportive of her desire to be an artist, of wanting to go to college out of state. But she heard the remarks they made when they were same-sex wedding notices in the newspaper, and knew this was something they would never stand for. If they found out, she would be grounded for life. She and Tasha had gotten to know each other when they were assigned to be lab partners in chemistry class, right at the end of the school year. Kat had only ever dated boys before, but she felt drawn to Tasha right away, with her short hair, pierced eyebrow, and ring through her nose. Tasha looked jailhouse tough, but underneath she was sweet and sentimental. She texted Kat poems she wrote herself. On the park bench that night, she and Tasha had kissed with all the passion and intensity that came with something new and secret. Tasha braved sliding a hand under Kat's t-shirt for the first time, and it was like a jolt of electricity ran through her. She let Tasha keep her hand there, but she decided she wasn't ready to go any farther than that. Not yet, but maybe soon. Later, climbing back into her bedroom through her window, still high from the experience and Tasha's promise to see her again tomorrow, Kat felt so energized that she'd immediately thrown open her sketchbook and started drawing, pausing only to answer Tasha's text of, "Did you get home okay?" with, "No, I'm dead," which summoned a flurry of laughing emojis. Kat returned her attention to the sketchbook and drew the butterfly tattoo that was on Tasha's right calf. Tasha didn't like the tattoo. She said the artist had messed it up by drawing one wing way bigger than the other. But to Kat, it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. The color of its wings started a deep, rich blue at the butterfly's body, then faded outward into an elegant lavender. Kat let out a bark of euphoric laughter and found it impossible to stop. And why should she stop? She was happy. Everything was so perfect. The colors of her bedroom brighter than she'd ever seen. The closet door swelled as though it were breathing. And Kat found this so funny, she laughed until tears poured from her eyes. That was when the flesh slipped off her arm. Off like a prom dress, as her dad liked to say, which she'd always found annoying, but now only made her laugh harder. The bones underneath were made of jewels, glittering red, yellow, and green, like a pirate's treasure in a children's book. They were so beautiful, the most beautiful things she'd ever seen. She flexed her sparkling fingers in fascination and felt her jewel bones creak. What's happening to me? She wondered. She thought back to her date with Tasha. While they were making out, she'd felt something strange, like tiny stinging pinpricks on her arms and neck. It stopped as quickly as it started, so she hadn't paid it much mind, figuring it was mosquitoes. Some remote part of her brain tried to tell her the little stings hadn't felt like normal bug bites. But the thought was lost to the glorious feeling that swept over her. Somehow, she could feel things beyond herself. She could feel everything. It was an almost religious experience, this sudden, undeniable connection she felt to Tasha, to her family, to everyone and everything. Everything was connected. Cat, nature, God, and those connections were like cosmic strings, cords that stretched from Cat to the rest of creation. She scribbled in her sketchbook, trying to capture the feeling on paper, her fleshless arm now miraculously encased in flesh once more. Around her, the air was alive with a flight of butterflies, their flapping, unevenly sized wings a royal blue and imperial lavender. They filled Kat's bedroom like a swarm, like a flood, like a sense of excitement so overpowering you think you're going to burst. If she stayed perfectly quiet, she could hear her own heart beating in time with their wings, a clock ticking in time with the universe itself. The pulse of the cosmos, like the kicking of a bass drum. The heartbeat of God, like thunder in the mountains. She jumped off the bed to chase after the butterflies. She ran across the room and saw, incredibly, another cat, another version of herself, running toward her. Was it future Cat? Cat from some alternate dimension? Was this other cat straight or gay? For that matter, what was she? Cat opened her arms to embrace the other cat. A moment later, a moment too late, some part of her brain realized it was her reflection in the bedroom mirror, in the bedroom window. But by then, she couldn't slow down. Her knees hit the ledge below the window and her body pitched forward. Her head hit the glass first, the hard bone of her skull smashing through it, and still she kept moving forward. The dagger-like shards slashed at her clothes and sliced small red nicks over every bit of exposed skin. And then Cat was flying, soaring with the butterflies, the wind through her hair. She was one with the divine, one with God, one with something in the park that called to her, beautiful and important. More than anything, she wanted to answer that call, but the ground rose to meet her, and after a blinding momentary flash of white-hot pain, 17-year-old Cat Bishop didn't want anything anymore. Thank you. Hello, guys.
That is an intense opening, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's emotionally gripping and just wow, things get off to a great start. Not a great start for Cat, but a great start for the reader.
Well, she's actually a very important character. She just doesn't play an active role after that.
That's great. So this is from The Hungry Earth, which came out in October.
That's correct. Yes.
And I'm going to just pop. I know we were looking at this earlier. I'm just going to pop the cover up here.
Thanks. Yeah, I love it.
Get a closer look because it is so creepy. And I know Kathleen was curious about the mushrooms growing out of the skull. Can you tell us about those without giving us spoilers?
Let's just say that there is something's making people hallucinate in this town, much like Cat was. Cat, obviously is hallucinating in this scene. She sees the butterflies that are reminiscent of the butterfly that is the tattoo on Tasha's leg, and she sees another cat and thinks it's another person. But so yeah, it's basically there's a not to give too much away, but there's a mutant mushroom that's growing in the community garden and is taking over the town.
Well, I love this book, and I had so much fun because I went to college a number of years, just a few years after the 60s were over, and all I could say is shrooms, man. Shrooms.
For a while, my agent said, maybe we should call it Shrooms. And I said, I could picture the 1980s paperback cover. Like I can picture the font exactly that would say Shrooms, right? But I thought we should go for something a little more modern and something that I felt resonated more as a phrase than Shrooms.
Yes.
Probably a wise choice. I think there's like a C movie, direct to
called Shrooms.
Horror movie Shrooms.
I'm sure, and I'm sure Riff Tracks already has that under advisement.
If there isn't, there will be in about a week.
But a
Yeah.
great comment from Chris Ryan. He really loved this line, which I think is fantastic. The heartbeat of God, like thunder in the mountains.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, um, it's fun to write people who are tripping, I guess, right? So you can get away with stuff like that. No, but I in all seriousness, thank you very much. I worked hard on this novel, and I'm glad that it's working for other people.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it was very much fun. Yeah, I started and I couldn't put it down, so that was cool.
Very kind of you. I'm on my second draft of the sequel.
Yes, because you've got some really cool characters in this who are interested in the world around them, let's just say. So I'm excited.
And the survivors show up for book 2, and and have another adventure. The main character in this burgeoning series is Dr. Laura Powell, who is a medical examiner for this small town of Sakima, and which is fictional. Don't look it up on a map. So she's the one who sort of has to investigate and get a grip on what's happening in this book, and also in the next one as well, which is tentatively titled "The Stone Serpent."
Ooh, I like the title.
Okay.
Now, did you plan to write a sequel when you wrote this, or you just sort of, let's see where it goes?
I have. This was such a circuitous route to this book.
Okay.
Back in, I must have started it in 2019. I wrote a novel also called The Hungry Earth that my agent hated. He hated it. He disliked it so much. He was like, "Nick, you can fire me for saying this, but I just don't like this novel." I was like, "No, I'm not going to fire you. This is what I need you for. I need you to tell me when I've written something that it doesn't work." So he had me read a book that he was reading that he really liked, a nonfiction book called Entangled Life by Dr. Merlin Sheldrake, which has got to be the best name I've ever heard. And it was all about mushrooms and mushroom intelligence, which is sort of a burgeoning field.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think there was just recently an article in The Guardian about how mushrooms are communicating through electromagnetic fields, which is also fascinating. So I read this book and I was like, wow, I have a completely different idea for a novel now, but I want to keep the name. So he was like, fine. So I mapped out this novel, and originally at the end, there were a lot fewer survivors. Let's put it that way. And he was like, no, let's have a happier ending. And I was like, fine. Well, I want a spooky ending and a happy ending, and I found a way to do that with the novel. Cool. So later, I was like, okay, here's an idea I have for another novel. He says, I don't like it, but I like this one idea that's part of it. And I said, okay, let's make a novel out of that idea. And I was like, how do I get into it? And he said, well, why don't you bring back Laura from the Hungry Earth and have her be the protagonist? And I was like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. And B, now we've got a series.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah.
As you guys are professional writers, agents love series because they can sell multi-book deals on series. Right. That's not exactly how it worked out for this, but
also and readers are going to be more likely to pick up a book where they already enjoyed the first one, where they like the characters. So that's cool.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I worked hard on the characterization in this book because I wanted, there's a love story in it as well between Laura and her ex-boyfriend who helps her out with the investigation.
Yeah,
and love stories are so hard for me to write. I mean, other people can do it super easily, I think, but and so I worked really hard to try to make it as naturalistic as possible. And it seems to be paying off. Like I said, it was a bestseller for a while, and I've gotten probably more feedback from readers on this book than any other before.
Oh, that's great. Cool. So it's really resonating with readers then.
It sounds like it, yeah. And I couldn't be more pleased.
That's excellent. And I think just one quick comment, and then we do have a question from the audience. But I always like to see this in the chat. Is when we run up people's Amazon tab by talking about books. So thank you, Chris.
I assume Chris is talking about my book. He might be talking about one of the others, but we all thank you.
He's talking about the scotch somebody mentioned earlier in the chat. Yeah, no, I'm teasing. No. I'm sure it's the book.
But Teal has cleverly worded his question to the man who put fun in fungus. Where did the kernel of this story come to you? Why a small town? So we heard a little bit about the nonfiction book that was part of
Yes,
the
yes,
inspiration.
I owe so much to Merlin Sheldrake's book. In fact, we tried to get a blurb from him, but we weren't able to reach him. Um,
Oh.
but why a small town? I needed it to be a small, isolated town that could be taken over quickly and relatively easily. And I also needed it to be the kind of town where everyone knows everyone else. So this fictional small town, it's got about 3,000 people. The main character is really a part-time medical examiner for the police, and the rest of the time she is just the town doctor. So she knows everyone pretty much, and she knows she's delivered children and seen those children grow up and everything. Right. So when the poop hits the fan, and people start to be altered by coming in contact with this mutant fungus, there's more resonance to it. It's not just a stranger who's acting funny. It's somebody she knows really well and has a long history with who's acting funny. So that's why I went with a small town. I also love the Hudson Valley, which is where I placed Sakima. It's just a great area. I've been up to Cold Spring a few times. It's really nice. And Storm King Art Center up there is also great.
Yeah. It's really pretty.
It's spooky enough on its own up there without a horror story added on.
We went to Sleepy Hollow once, me and my wife, not realizing that there's not much in Sleepy Hollow. It's basically like a little corner of Tarrytown, but they have a wonderful, huge cemetery that you can walk around in. That's really nice and has some beautiful monuments.
And here is Nicholas with the question we were expecting. Are you a fan of the movie Matango?
I have to admit something embarrassing to you, which is that I haven't seen it. I'm familiar with it. I know that it's about mushroom people, but I have not seen it. It was for a long time. It was very hard to find in the U.S. I think that may no longer be the case. I should definitely check it out because I know some people who love that movie. But Nicholas, I'm sorry to disappoint. I can't comment on it because I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Okay.
I have an interesting observation and sort of a question. I got to do a Q&A with Sylvia Moreno Garcia at, I guess, last year's Stoker to wrangle some of the questions after her reading. And of course, with her Mexican Gothic, there'd be mushrooms there and such. So while I was talking to her, she says, "Oh, and I've got to show you this." And she pulled this book off the shelf and she's opening it up. We had a big, thick, sort of technical book with all these pictures and all that. I wonder if that was that same Entangled Lives one. Wouldn't that be wild? Yeah.
That would be great. There are pictures in Entangled Life, so it could be.
Yeah.
But that's fun. Yeah, I have Sylvia's book, Mexican Gothic, on my shelf, or actually, more realistically, in the pile of books in my bedroom.
The one on the left or the one on the right? Yeah.
Oh my God, no! There are 4 piles of books on top of my dresser, and they are not small piles. But hers is definitely one that I'm going to get to soon because I've just heard wonderful things about it.
Yeah, it's cool with the mushroom thing. I mean, it makes me think of the yellow wallpaper and, bring us some of that weird, creepy stuff. So that's cool.
I think there might be a mushroom zeitgeist going on.
I think so.
There were a couple of films that came out in 2020, I think, that were sort of mushroom related. In the Earth and Gaia. And then there's Sylvia's book. There's my book. There's another book coming out soon called, I think, What Moves. I can't remember the title, but it's got a creature on the cover that's covered in mushrooms. I think we're in the middle of a mushroom renaissance, basically. Mushrooms are not just, for your pizzas and your salads anymore. They're for your horror novels.
I'm going to go bathe now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's a creeping new subgenre.
Yeah.
Yes. Mushroom Gothic.
That's it. Exactly.
I have another question for you. You probably know that I've read a bunch of your books, Nick. And so
I know you've always been so supportive, and I really appreciate that.
Well, you were one of the first writer folks that I met who had books that I could get my hands on, so I did, But
thank you.
You've written a whole bunch of different things. You had the urban stuff, with Dying in Stay Dead and all that stuff, and then you had Vampires on a Submarine, and now you're going this. What do you think about writing these different flavors of creepy stuff?
I can't help thinking sometimes I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. But I think what it really is what interests me changes over time. And so what interests me is what I write. And it's a mixed blessing that I don't have a huge readership. because they're not necessarily keeping me to one topic. I wouldn't mind a huge readership keeping me to one topic, but I'm in a situation where I have a small but dedicated readership that seems to like just about everything I do, and so it does free me up a bit. Yes, thank you, Carol. It does free me up a bit to follow my own interests in what I write, rather than being forced to continue to write just one thing. And I've enjoyed everything that I've written, so that's always good. But I really enjoyed I enjoyed writing those urban fantasies so much, because I could just let myself go crazy in New York. Like it's set in New York City, which is a place I know. Like
such great descriptions in New York City in there. It was awesome. I could picture exactly where I'm standing. Yeah,
I know this city like the back of my hand. I've been here forever. I mean, one human lifetime. But that was a lot of fun. Yeah, and I'm sorry those books didn't really catch on. As a matter of fact, shortly after The Hungry Earth came out, Dying Is My Business and Die and Stay Dead went out of print with St. Martin's.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Oh well.
Too bad.
Glad I got mine.
Yeah. So now you've
I have the rights
nominated.
back, so maybe I can do something with them.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, get them back in print and see what
maybe
happens. But you've been nominated for the Stoker Award, Shirley Jackson Award, and the Thriller Writers Award also.
Yeah,
and others.
The Dragon Award.
The Dragon Award. That was the one. Yeah.
But
So
I haven't won any of them. I'm always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
but that's across such a wide spectrum. I mean, for example, what was the work that was nominated for the Thriller Award?
That was Chasing the Dragon, which came out in 2010 and was a novella published by Cheezine Publications at the time, and it was up for Best Story because of its length. They didn't quite consider it a novel, so they put it in the story. It didn't win.
Right.
But it was so much fun to go to the awards ceremony at this ritzy New York hotel in Midtown. And I got to meet, I sat with F. Paul Wilson, who I've known for several years now, but he introduced me to R.L. Stein at the awards. And I was like, oh my God, I was already out of the age range when Goosebumps came out, but I was a bookseller at the time, and those books flew off the shelf in the mid to late 90s. They flew off the shelf.
Yeah, they were very big influential series. I meet so many authors horror authors who are younger than me, and I don't want to give my age away again, but
have you heard of TikTok, James?
Well, my clock is working. I hear TikTok. I'm not that old. I'm just being funny. But I never read them. My sisters were big fans of them. But I talked to so many authors who that was their sweet spot. Was Goosebumps what got them into horror. And it's funny because I've been fortunate enough to meet R.L. Stein a couple of times in person. He is hilarious.
Yeah, it was really nice and funny, and I was just a babbling idiot in front of him, because I mean, if you're in the horror writing industry, like he's a titan,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I didn't know until recently that he was early on. I guess he worked at Scholastic and edited or packaged some kind of magazine that included early horror comics by some of the the people who went on to work on big horror comics like Swamp Thing, like Stephen Bissett and Rich Veitch, I think, worked for R.L. Stein. He wrote these like creepy EC style stories for the magazine, and I didn't know about those until about a couple of years ago.
Not to get wildly off topic,
yeah.
But Dark Horse has been putting out full color reproductions of big editions of the old Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, all that stuff. And I've been reading a few of them, and they're so charming and delightful and so silly, and I just love them.
They're wonderful. I think I have some of those if I'm thinking of the right editions, and they're just bloody, but in a fun way.
They're so much fun, and each story is like 5 pages long, so it just gets right to the chase, and it's great. It's wonderful stuff.
Yeah. So I see we have a question from Chris. So why don't we take that, and then we'll have the rest of the gang come back on. So Chris says, it is great to hear you can write anything. Earlier in your career, did agents try to keep you in one genre?
No, but that's because I suppose it's because I wasn't branching out earlier in my career. Earlier in my career, I was writing just horror. But my first published novel was actually an adventure novel written under a house name, Gabriel Hunt. And that, I mean, it was super fun to write. It was basically, an Indiana Jones movie, but with somebody not named Indiana Jones, right?
Oklahoma Smith, yeah.
But when I landed my agent that I have now, that was with the Urban Fantasies, and he was, he's still my agent now, though I think he's thinking about, he would never use the word retirement, but I think he's thinking about retiring. But he, when it became clear that the Urban Fantasies weren't working, and that St. Martin's didn't want the third book in that series, we went out to lunch. We had a lovely Chinese restaurant lunch on the Upper East Side, and he said, "What I want from you now is a supernatural horror novel." And I was like, "Well, that's that's my wheelhouse. Like this isn't going to be hard at all." And eventually I wound up doing 100 Fathoms Below with Stephen L. Kent, who is also a client of my agent's, which is how we met. So yeah, I mean, I would say my agent didn't try to keep me in one genre, but if those Urban Fantasies had taken off, I think he would have been more reluctant for me to try other genres.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. Well, I have more questions for you, Nick. So we're just going to have you come back on another time to read.
Thank you.
Which would be great. Just I want to make sure we get to hear what everybody else has coming up next that we can look forward to. So I'm going to bring Kathleen and Trevor back on. Great.
Hey, everybody. This has been so much fun. So many great reading. Y'all are terrific.
Yeah.
Great night.
Great stories, great readings, and I love the illustration that Christine did, Kathleen. That was just really wonderful.
It was cool getting.
Showed it to me. I cried.
It was very cool getting to talk with the artist too. That was neat.
Yeah. So, I just out of curiosity, did you ever get around to seeing the documentary Rats that came out a few years ago?
No, I couldn't find it.
Oh, okay. I wonder if it used to be on Netflix, but things come and go from those platforms. But it was a look at rats in about 5 different places around the world. It was New York City, the English countryside, India, and 2 other places I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you ever get a chance to see it, I think you might have some fun with it.
Okay, who had the best rats?
Well, New York, of course.
Of course.
Hands down. Yeah, it was great. They were just going around kicking trash piles and watching the rats go running out of them.
We have pizza rats. Those are the best rats.
Yeah. Oh well. No rats on your TV show, Trevor, right? Yeah.
No. So what I was just going to say, so let's go around and hear what everybody has coming up next. Anything that we can keep an eye out for. Kathleen, do you want to start us off?
What's coming up next? StokerCon. I'm so excited to see everybody. So going to be there in a month. I've looked at the programming. I'm so psyched. There's one on autopsies. I'm there. Because I'm a medical editor, so it's just like, yes, these are my people. Yeah. Let's see. The book that I read from last year, Blood Mask, is still making its way around the editors. It's just a long process. And meanwhile, I'm finishing up 2 projects right now, Rats of New York and then Queen of the Track, which is my haunted quilt roller derby thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool,
Trevor, how about you? Anything on the horizon?
Absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. Well, so I have this story that I just read from, What's Your Secret? That is coming out soon. I'm sure you have a little bit more information on the release date than I do right now. But
July 1st.
July 1st? Is that the
July
official
1st,
date?
the official release date, yes, for Even in the Grave.
Oh, fantastic. I'm excited for that. We're with some really talented people in the table of contents, so I'm pretty excited about that. Aside from that, I recently wrapped up a novel that I'm now querying agents for, so I'm going to be attending a few pitch fests. So fingers crossed, absolutely. Going to Thriller Fest in New York City in June, so I'm really excited for that. And then I guess the project I'm really excited about is I am working on a comic book, which I'm working on it with an amazingly talented artist. He recently did the Rise of Dracula covers, so yeah, it's going to be a fantastic project.
Excellent.
That sounds very cool. That's very cool.
And Nick, what's on your outlook?
Well, the sequel to The Hungry Earth, which is tentatively titled The Stone Serpent, should be out with luck this fall, depending on if I can finish it in time. I mean, it's finished, but I'm on the second of 3 drafts.
Copy through the screen for you. Yeah.
And I have a story coming out in a Daryl Schweitzer anthology called Shadows Out of Time,
Yes.
which should be debuting at Necronomicon this year. Should Necronomicon happen?
Fingers crossed for both.
James, I think you're in that too, right?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Very excited for that one to come out. If it makes it for Necronomicon, that would be even better.
Yeah, because that's the perfect audience for it.
Yeah, that would be ideal timing. Yeah, that's very cool.
So is there a chance Necronomicon may not happen? Have you heard anything? Or
I haven't heard anything that says it won't happen, but I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if things don't go through. So I'm hoping it does.
Yeah.
I think I'm just still traumatized from last summer, which was supposed to be, hot vax summer, right? We were all supposed to be, wild and free again, and it didn't work out that way. But I do, every indication is that Necronomicon will happen this year.
Cool.
Terrific.
Cool. Yeah, that's neat. Jim, how about you? Do you have anything coming out on, June or July 1st or what?
Well, yes, on July 1st, Even in the Grave is coming out, and Shadows Out of Time at some point this year, and a few other things that I think haven't been officially enough announced yet for me to mention them. But there's a this one was announced, but I'm not actually sure when it's coming out. It's Weird House Press is putting out an anthology of haunted house stories that I have a story in. I think it's 13 haunted house stories. If I'm not mistaken, the title is Haunted 13. And Curtis Lawson and Joe Morey edited it, and I'm looking forward to that. It's got a great lineup of authors.
Yeah, that's cool.
How about you, Karen?
Following along those lines, Weird House Press is starting Weird House Magazine, and I have a story in the premiere issue, which should be May, and that's Curtis Lawson and Joe Morey, which is very cool, and I'm excited about that. I have a cryptid novella, which is appearing on April 21st, which is, that's coming up soon.
Yeah.
It's set in the Systema Paradoxa series from the Neo Paradox imprint of eSpec Books. And Jim has one earlier in that series, another cryptid novella as well. So mine's coming out soon. It's very fun. And as he said, the ghost story anthology that we co-edited with a lot of people in the local area is coming out July 1st. So that's Even in the Grave with a fabulous cover from Lynn Hansen. And I looked and I looked and I looked. We even got an early copy at Heliosphere, and I can't lay my hands on it to hold it up, which is embarrassing. So,
I can.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's
That's
never
very
far
cool.
from my reach.
Yes, and that's what Trevor's story is in, and lots of folks have stories in there, so that's very cool. Very cool.
Exciting stuff. So yeah, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carol.
Oh, I was just going to say, going forward, next month is StokerCon, which is happening on the second Thursday, which is when we typically do our readings. And so we've opted, considering how we're a little bit busy, we opted to take that month off. But I would encourage anybody who is going to be going into withdrawal without hearing their Galactic Terrors fix, go take a peek at the, at some of the archive stuff on the YouTube channel. Watch a show in our honor, and we'll be back again in June for that. Yeah. So,
you
there
can
we go.
subscribe to follow future Galactic Terrors transmissions. And we
Yeah.
have a nifty newsletter that Carol curates, and we do not spam you. You just get a couple of reminders a month that we have a great lineup of readers, and one, I think, a day or two before, Carol, just to remind everyone that it's coming up.
Yep, with the current link. Yep. And so tell all your friends, and feel free to share news about our transmissions. So
excellent. So thank you all for joining us tonight to read. We've had a great time. We hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for sharing your work with us and taking some time to answer questions. I think that's my favorite part of this whole program, is to do the Q&A and just chat and talk about what people are doing and where their stories are coming from. So we hope everyone is doing well and staying safe, and let's keep our fingers crossed that this really does become the year of getting back to something like normal.
Although if any of us actually approach normal, it might be kind of something. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, we should probably define normal for this conversation.
Yeah, status quo. Let's go with status quo. Yeah, terrific. Well, I look forward to seeing some folks at Stoker, and I look forward to seeing folks again back here in June. So thank you, everybody.
All
cool.
right.
Thanks so
Have a
much.
great night.
All right.
Hey, that wasn't supposed to happen.